Hi, I'm Lisa Loomis, and I'm here at the Mad River Valley Television Studios in Waitsfield for a community conversation with Steve Neratko, who is the Economic Development Director for the town of Dover. We're here to talk about Dover's local option tax, how it is used, how it was created, and the success of it and the lessons learned from it. Thanks for joining us today, Steve. How are things in Dover?
Great, things are great.
Good. So tell us a little bit about Dover itself, the population, your economy, you're a ski town. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So here in Dover, we have about 1,000 full-time residents. So we're a pretty small community, but we have a large base of second homeowners, visitors who come to town. Our population can swell quite a bit during ski weekends. With Mount Snow being here, and we about 85% of our homes are second homes or are used for Airbnb rental or that sort of thing. So we have a lot of people coming to town. We serve our community serves a large base of people that aren't full-time residents but are here quite a bit, and so we've implemented some programs to hopefully benefit everybody who comes here.
That's a lot. That's a lot of second homeowners. 80%, you said, right?
About 85%.
So when did Dover adopt a local option tax?
So in 2007, they first implemented and they first voted in the option tax and began implementing some projects, and from there it sort of built upon itself.
So at whose impetus was it created, and how much money does it raise?
So, it was really the community as a whole. They took a look at, what was really needed here. They took a look at how they could potentially fund some programs to help economic development here. It really was a mix of, the board that was in place, a wide range of community members and the business community alike. They really, I think everyone understood that that this was a good thing for Dover as long as the funds were utilized in the correct way. And what they really wanted to see is these funds be utilized for economic development and community development projects and programs that'll help the people who live here and the people who visit, hopefully, spur some additional economic development in the community. We do, like I said, we have that large base of second homeowners and visitors, and we would like to entice them to be here more, whether it is, coming back and spending more time at their second homes here, spending more times at the bed and breakfasts and inns and restaurants and businesses in town. And potentially, hopefully down the road, become full-time residents of the community. We really want to have the amenities in place and have the programs in place to really help, benefit the community and the town as a whole. And one of those things is to really, to keep people here and to bring people to be here more often.
I want to get to the programming in a minute, but I want to ask you one couple of nuts and bolts questions. How much money does your LOT raise, and is it on rooms, meals? Is it rooms, meals, alcohol, and retail sales? And then, do you know what percentage of it comes from full-time residents versus second homeowners? We have a stat here for our community where an LOT is being considered, and we're also a ski community like yours. And that statistic suggests that 88% of LOT funds will come from second homeowners and visitors, and 12% will come from full-time year-round residents. Do you have any similar stat? Sorry, that was a lot of questions at once.
Yeah. So first of all, we bring in about $550,000 a year. It's wavered a little bit from year to year, depending on how the ski season is that year. But that's about what it is. We don't have a great number on what percentage is, people who live here full time versus visitors and second homeowners. I know I've heard a similar stat in other areas, but it's not something that we've really had a chance to study. it is something that we've thought about and potentially in the future would like to take a closer look at. But I believe when they originally took a look at this, that percentage was about 80%. So that 85%. So it could very well be true, but not something we've really taken a look at.
So there's been no negative impact on your restaurants and your bars and your retail shops?
Well, I wouldn't say there's no negative impact. I mean, we always have we always want to be able to keep our businesses competitive. But I believe that the community as a whole, including the business owners, realize that these funds are being utilized for positive purposes and are helping to spur more development and more economic growth in the community and community development growth as well, because it's not only bringing more people and money to the community, but it's also providing amenities for the people who live here around. And so we don't have a great number, but I think for the most part, the business community and the community as a whole are behind these projects and programs and really see that they are bringing a benefit. And at the same time, we've been doing some planning. We've got some good plans in place for the future. We've been able to accumulate some funds so that we can look at some rather large projects that otherwise the town would not be able to put forward, like broadband internet.
Let's talk a little bit about how the money is spent and how were the spending areas developed and who developed those spending areas. I think from our previous conversation, I understand that when you arrived on the job, there wasn't a well-formed plan for spending the money and the buckets that the money would get put into. Is that correct?
So I've been here for about 2.5 years. One of the reasons they brought me on is I have a background in planning and economic development, and they wanted to have a real robust plan for how these funds would be utilized and moving forward. Going back to 2007, they've had committees on and off throughout the years that have been developing projects and programs for the town. But some of those had sputtered. Some of them had not, hadn't really understood exactly how they should utilize funds. And so we've really, put in place 10 committees. Everything from originally they had 6 committees in place: beautification, events, marketing, telecommunications, trails, and venue, that looked at potential projects that could benefit the community. And we've added over the last couple years business and workforce development, infrastructure as a whole, housing, and public safety. And so we've been meeting, we've been developing plans. The committees are made up of mostly community members, although we do have a few select board members on committees as well. We really get together, we identify projects that could potentially benefit the community. And then we look to, prioritize them and begin to implement those. And so some of the bigger projects we've been working on, we developed with the town of Wilmington a housing study and analysis that took a look at exactly what our housing issues are here and proposed some projects to move forward to help our issues, which are really come down to the fact that we have, again, a large second homeowner base. We have a lot of Airbnb rentals. That's becoming more and more prevalent, and it's really putting the pinch on the housing market and inflating prices. And so we've been looking at potential projects to help overcome that.
Can I interject here and ask you about that, your by-town agreement with Wilmington? Wilmington also has an LOT, correct?
Yes, they do.
And so do you pool funds, or how do you earmark specific funding for housing, for your housing study or for housing projects? What's the structure of your agreement with Wilmington?
So, it really comes down to on a project by project basis. We have a Bytown Economic Development Committee that's
Okay.
made up of community members from both communities. If we think there's something that we could work on together and that would make it, easier and more productive for both towns, we'll work on it together. And so right now we're working on marketing and housing together. And so each of the select boards authorize funds for those projects on a project by project basis.
Okay, that makes sense. And who decides? So your committees do the work and make like a prioritized list of projects. Does that go to your select board for quarterly approval, annual approval, every other meeting approval?
Yeah, I mean it's an annual basis. So really, through the budgeting process, we have we go through that prioritization session each year, and then I put that together as part of the town report. What is decided upon between our committees and the select board, and then it's not voted upon on town meeting day, but we do talk about it and discuss it. And if there's any issues, or we as a community, that gives us a good chance to all get together and discuss those projects and programs as well.
And are there metrics that you use for accountability and efficacy to see if what you're spending in recreation is bringing returns, or what you're spending in marketing is bringing returns? How do you assess the efficacy of your grant money, your grants?
So it depends on a project by project basis. Marketing, we have a lot of good numbers in terms of, for our online advertising, how many clicks or impressions that we're getting. We have other ways to see some of that data, although again, it's always difficult, and we're always looking at new ways to really be able to measure that. For trails and recreation, we're looking at that information right now as well, and so we have put some trail counters up, and we are trying to understand exactly how and when and what types of activities our trails and recreation system are really being used and when they're being used. And right now we're actually putting together a trails and recreational venue plan for the town. And we're taking a look at all those different things. But it's really committee by committee and project by project. Some of the projects that we that we undertake are really understand that those are community benefits, and not necessarily are we going to see a jump in our 1% fund from that. But we will see more activity. We may see people stay longer. We may just have a more, robust and vibrant downtown because of that, because of some of our beautification projects or other things like that. So it's a difficult process. We always have.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, we always have questions about, how can we rank, which projects and programs are working and which ones aren't, and it's difficult. And I can tell you that everybody who's doing this is having those same conversations.
The effort here to create an LOT has actually already established a fairly, I would say, strong set of metrics to use, including school population. I know that when we spoke earlier, you talked about some of your efforts were aimed at attracting young families, and it's an interest. They've actually done a lot of the work that you're now doing. They're doing it ahead of a vote to adopt a local option tax. So let's talk about some of the amazing things you're doing with that money. And how much are your grants? So talk to me a little bit about the smaller grants, and then let's talk about the bigger projects you've been able to pull off, including the cell towers and the high-speed internet.
Sure. So, we have an advertising program for our business community. It offers reimbursement for co-advertising between the business and the town. Businesses who put out any sort of advertising can get 40 to 50% of those funds back, as long as they put a Town of Dover logo on it, on their advertising. We have and I would say on an annual basis, we utilize about $25,000 to $30,000 a year in that program, and have probably 30 businesses who participate throughout the year. We have a program that you can utilize. It's called the Do It program, and it's It's for businesses who are looking to revitalize, the facade of their building or make other improvements to their buildings. We reimburse 75% of the project funds for a variety of projects, from painting to roof work, to totally new facades. We generally utilize about $50,000 worth of funds a year in that, and that program has been in place for quite some time. Our marketing program with the town of Wilmington utilizes about $40,000 to $50,000 a year, mostly to do online advertising focused on our summer and out of season vacationers who may be interested in coming here. That utilizes, again, about $40,000 to $50,000 a year, and has been in place for a number of years, probably 5 or 6 years. And we're actually right now looking to do a marketing plan and really take a new holistic look at the marketing of the community and how we should potentially go about that. It's been a while since we really took a look at exactly how we should utilize those funds, and so we're doing that again. We have some of our bigger projects. We've put in place the housing plan, which is was about a $20,000 plan to really take a look at our housing and put together some projects for the future. Some of the projects we're looking to come out of that is some co-housing or shared housing projects and programs. We're taking a look at having a program available where we'll be able to homeowners who are interested in renting a portion of their home to a worker in the community, a seasonal worker or a full-time worker, would be able to get some funds to make some improvements to their homes to accommodate that. That's one of our big issues, is we can't find housing for workforce.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be able to accomplish that. We're putting aside $50,000 this year. And then some of the bigger projects we purchased, a 50-acre piece of property that's going to be utilized for all sorts of recreational purposes, trails, potentially a disc golf course, all kinds of different things. And we are putting together the final touches on exactly how and where funds will be utilized for other trails and recreation in the community. We have put aside about $1 million for our broadband internet program, and really, one of the big issues is much of the community that doesn't have access to broadband internet, and it really makes it difficult to live here full time if you don't have access. And so, right now we're working with other neighboring communities to potentially put together a communications union district, and these funds will be set aside hopefully for the town of Dover to be the pilot program for that and be able to bring broadband internet to every premise in the town.
So how much, I don't know how much it would cost to do that, and I don't know what $1 million represents in terms of total cost.
So for a total cost to accommodate the whole town, we're looking at about a $5 million project. But we have some access to other funds if, since we would be the pilot program. The majority of the neighboring communities don't have those funds set aside, mm-hmm. and wouldn't really even be able to get a start. So we're hoping that together we can be the pilot program for a union district that will be region-wide. And so we're actually meeting with Wyndham Regional Commission tonight to put some plans together for that and continue that development of that project.
That's a very interesting pilot project. Yeah, I'll be curious to follow that and see how it goes. You mentioned public safety. How do you spend funds for public safety?
Well, it's a new program, and so we haven't spent funds in public safety yet, but we're looking at some projects right now that could potentially be developed. One of the things about having an entity like Mount Snow here, where it brings in a lot of visitors, is that it puts a a real pinch on our police departments and our fire departments, and so we're looking into potentially how funds could be utilized to support them so that we can continue to develop the community. We did set aside $25,000 for our emergency rescue team to be able to have GPS devices so that they'll be able to go out and be able to, in real time, be able to find people easier, which is really important when you have a lot of backcountry trails like we do now. But we're continuing to look at, how we can support our police and fire departments.
So this sounds like true economic development. You're developing your economy locally. You're seeking young families. You're trying to grow your community. You're trying to provide amenities for those who live here and make it so attractive that people want to live there.
Definitely.
Both young families and second homeowners. How will you measure that success? Is that the metric you're still working on?
Well, I mean, I think each project has its own metric. Is kind of
yes, I think it does. Yes.
Because it really depends. With our broadband internet project, our goal is to really have people here more often and have people here year round. And so we'll be able to easily, look at those numbers and be able to tell if that project was a success. But, our planning at this point has shown, and our day-to-day, life here in terms of, trying to work with potential businesses who are coming to town and how they will be able to employ people here and to be able to bring workers here, shows us that it is absolutely necessary that we have, broadband internet.
The amenities, yes, plus housing, of course.
And yes, and plus
right,
housing.
So, if you could identify a couple of lessons learned for communities who haven't gone down your path yet, what might they be?
Well, I think the first thing is what they're doing there, and that's have a robust plan from day one, and really put in place some programs and projects that you think will be successful right away, and have that in place, have that planning process in place, have those communities and priorities in place prior to to really beginning that implementation process. You'll just have so much easier of a time, when you have that planning process done ahead of time. And then second of all, really think about how these funds could be best utilized. Realize that not every dollar has to be spent in day one. It's okay to accumulate some funds, because there's going to be projects down the line that you're going to want to accomplish that are going to be expensive, and you're otherwise you're going to be trying to fund a project 5 or 10 years from now when you could be doing it right when you're able to do it. And so really take a look at those funds, and look at every dollar and make sure that you're utilizing them correct. And then it's great that they have some metrics in place, and I think that's going to be important in terms of just continuing to be able to support that project and have your community on your side.
That's great. Thank you very much for your time today, Steve.
Thank you very much.
It's great talking to you.
You too.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
And that was a conversation with Steve Neratko, who's the Economic Development Director for Dover, Vermont, home of Mount Snow. And I'm Lisa Loomis, having a community conversation today at the studios of MRVTV. Thank you very much.